This is a network-attached storage computer. It lacks a single HDMI output for a monitor, and it uses an AMD chipset. And despite this, I'm pretty sure I can launch macOS on it. With some asterisks. I don't do intros, so let's get to it. That means using virtualization, but it's not as straightforward as you might think. According to Apple's EULA, virtualization of macOS is only permitted on genuine Apple computers. Virtualizing macOS on non-Apple hardware like PCs or servers is a violation of the EULA. In my video review of this unit, I called Synology the Apple of network-attached storage, so I think that counts. As a non-lawyer, that seems like legally sound logic to me, so let's move forward. Out of the box, Synology provides VM software, but it doesn't support macOS, not just because of legal reasons. If this Reddit post is accurate, it's emulating a very old chipset. A quick Google search later reveals that this is pre-USB 3.0 and PCIe, basically too old to virtualize macOS. But of course, while editing this video, Synology released an update for its virtualization software, which supports Q35, which means all that new stuff, but doesn't seem to support macOS. I don't really want to go too much into this, but I really tried to get it to work and it didn't. Maybe someone else has figured this out by the time you watch this. The Synology can run Dockur, and I realize a significant chunk of my audience probably doesn't know or care what Dockur is. It's another form of virtualization using packages and small containers to run services, and I happen to love it as a developer. I think you know where I'm going with this. And someone has already Dockerized macOS. For the first part, I'm going to demonstrate running Ventura on my Synology, then I'll follow up in a later part by showing the process of installing Sequoia. And as a bonus, I'm also going to attempt using the exact same setup on Ubuntu. I'll be doing this on a mini PC with 14 cores. Even if you're not a huge nerd, I think you'll find this pretty cool because we're running macOS where we're not supposed to be. And if you are, you'll be excited to know you can do this under Linux or Windows or macOS, and I'll cover that a little bit in this video. Here is my fresh installed Ventura, and I'm stepping through the typical setup sped up because I'm pretty sure you've seen this more than a few times. The way you access your virtualized Dockerized Mac is via the web browser, as the Docker container has a VNC server, aka screen sharing, installed in it. The setup is a bit clunky and slow, but I've seen worse as I recently put Sequoia on a Mac Mini 2010. Here I am trying Safari, and things got a little strange. If I try to go to geekbench.com, it's completely blank. Pretty sure this website works. I think it's time to break out Firefox. Let's go to the web page and it's blank. Pretty average Safari experience. This is meeting or exceeding my expectations of Safari right now. Oh, of course the Google advertisement for Chrome works, so let's download that. Okay, even the download confirmation page isn't really rendering. I think I figured this out. I notice if I click on the desktop, I can see the Safari rendered page. And if I click back on the window, it's gone. I have a theory here so I can get Firefox. Okay, I'm gonna load the web page, then click off the screen, then go back to the screen, and click the link even though I can't see it. You're goddamn right that worked. So I've downloaded Firefox and now I'm installing it. Okay, verifying's gonna take forever. Oh, if I was smarter, I would have done this first. Let's go to About This Mac and check it out. It reports a iMac Pro with a 2.6 GHz i3 with 7 MB of VRAM and 8 GB of RAM, which is how much RAM I allocated to this. With Firefox installed, after a very long verification process, it launched and I was able to view the internet normally. That was totally worth your time, right? Where was I? Oh, right. I want to download Geekbench 6, so I'm going to go to the website and download it. Ah, yeah. Nothing like watching Geekbench 6 run? I'll cut ahead. The D923 Plus is not a performance monster. It only has a dual-core AMD Ryzen R1600, and that's because it's designed for efficiency and not roasting marshmallows. I did, however, upgrade it from 4GB of RAM to 32GB of RAM, but I've only allocated 8GB of RAM to the virtual machine. The results are in, and it's more than twice as fast as my Mac Mini 2010, and it shows because even through VNC, this is a much better experience. In my 100% qualified opinion, this is a strong showing for something that's meant for storage. If you're familiar with running macOS on old hardware using OpenCore, the Weather app is typically a pain point as it has a lot of graphical glitches. This virtual Mac actually renders the screen properly after it's had enough time to completely load. Apple Maps, another program that has issues with unsupported hardware, appears almost completely blank. Right now, this map should be doxing my home. The verdict is in, and macOS is usable in a loose sense, but you're probably better off running a Linux distro if you need a VM off this hardware. Now let's go through how I pulled this off using macOS Sequoia as a new starting point. What makes this possible is Dockur macOS. Links are in the description. I have Container Manager installed on my Synology, which is Dockur. Open it, and then click Registry. In the search tab, search macOS. What we're looking for is Docker/macOS. Right-click it and select Download this image. Now with that out of the way, click Project. Then click Create. I already have a path set up, so I'm going to use that. Okay, so I have my path selected now. We just need to give it a project name, and I'm going to name it Sequoia. For the Docker source, I'm going to create my own Docker composed YAML file. In my other tab, I have the Docker macOS project open. Without getting too deep into Docker, Docker Compose is a config file where you can define a bunch of services. Think like a bunch of mini virtual machines. This particular project is great because it's ultra simple, only has one service, macOS. And since I'm an ultra professional developer, I'm just going to copy and then take it back to my source file and then paste it there. If you've never used YAML before, it can be a bastard code bastard with a bastard filling. It's white space dependent. Just by looking at this configuration file, we can see that we're setting the OS by a flag, so if we just skim the documentation without really reading it and look for the OSs, we can now see the supported operating systems. And of course, Sequoia is one of them. We'll go back to the version flag and change it to Sequoia. I'm so lazy that I even copy and pasted it. While I'm here, I'm going to give this container a unique name, and I'm just going to name it Sequoia, but you can name this whatever you want. I also noticed that there's a RAM flag, so I want to set this with more RAM than the default, so I'm going to go back, scroll down until I see it, and then copy and paste it, and of course, drop it back into the configuration file. Only after using this did I go back and read the documentation. It defaults to 4 GB of RAM if you don't set this. This differs a little bit when configuring under, say, Ubuntu or macOS, and almost certainly quite a bit different in Windows. If you're looking for Windows tips, this isn't the channel. And we can skip the web portal settings as this is just going to be accessible locally. I sound like I know what I'm talking about. In my other tab, I already have the URL pulled up with the correct port number. It is the IP of my Synology, followed by the port number that was declared in the YAML file. And when I hit reload, of course it connects, and it starts the process of downloading Sequoia, and then it'll launch into the boot process. Since this is a fake computer with a fake hard drive, we need to use the very real disk utility to format said fake drive. Format the bigger one, because I think the other one's just the EFI partition. And then just step through the installer like normal. Mine didn't load the EULA, so I think that means I didn't agree to shit. Yep, I'm pretty sure that's how intellectual property works. Moving on. Things didn't go 100% smoothly, and let's talk about that for a second. Anytime the macOS installer needed to reboot, it caused my Synology to sympathy reboot. All you need to do is sign back into your Synology like normal, and open the Container Manager, go to your projects, and it might take a second for it to load. Just wait, and then just start the project again. If we go back to the VNC tab in our browser and hit reload, we can see that it started the install process back where it left off. I think I had to do this a grand total of 3 times, but I wasn't counting. This was true for Ventura and Sequoia. As of recording this, macOS 15 Sequoia is a bit busted. A dead giveaway is that the background's not loading during the installer. But that's just the beginning of the problems. Mostly, it's just painfully slow. If I had to guess, there's still a lot of work to be done for Sequoia support. It's not even interesting how slow macOS 15 is. For now, you're better off running one of the older macOSs. Now it's time to do this on Linux. The Synology operating system is actually Linux too. It's just that this time I'm going to be doing it on Ubuntu. I guess I'll just leave this take in. I went to the package manager in Ubuntu and I've installed Dockur. From Visual Studio Code, now I should just make my Docker Compose file. And I'm going to stick it in its own folder in my documents. Now to do some terminal stuff, we're just going to navigate into that directory so we can run this Docker Compose file. And I realize now that I'm going to run Ventura instead of Sonoma, but who cares? Of course it didn't work. Okay. Maybe if I install this via the terminal. I'm going to run a sudo apt update. I actually don't know if I need sudo, but whatever. I'm up to date, so let's install more Dockers. Sudo apt install docker.io, and like a normal human, I had to look that up because I did not know the package name. While this was installing, I got smart and looked up the command to start Docker, so it's sudo systemctl start Docker. If you're a hardcore Linux person, you probably don't know this, but the macOS Docker, you just double click to run, but everything else is done through the terminal. Now to run Docker Compose up. Now to run Docker Compose up. Mr. Docker, are you running Docker Compose up? I'm back from the internet and I think I have the answer. Sudo usermod -a uppercase G Docker $user. I know that's a variable. Docker Compose up. Yay! All right, we're in business. The nice thing about running a normal version of Docker is it'll just go out onto the interwebs and grab the necessary containers when you run Docker Compose. Just speaking from personal experience, these can eat up quite a bit of space. I'm not going to cover it in this video, but you'll want to delete the Docker images and containers when you want to free up space. Then it's installing Ventura like before. I'm running this on a fairly high-end mini PC. It's a Geekom 12900H i9, I think. The point being is it's quite fast. Alright everyone, this is pretty cool. I just ran Geekbench 6 on this thing, and it's really fast. This is only 2 cores. I just added the 6-core flag to the YAML file, and now it's fast as a Mac Mini M1. Well, it doesn't have GPU acceleration. I am using this through a choppy VNC connection, but still, that's really impressive. I could throw all 14 cores at this, but there's not much to learn. Number be bigger with more cores. It really wouldn't improve the shortcomings of the user experience. It'll be interesting to see where Dockerized macOS goes from here, and if you're looking for something to watch, I made a review of my Synology, and almost no one watched it, but I thought it was a good review, so check that out, and thanks to my Patreons for keeping this mid-roll ad-free.